I guess I want to return, Bálint, to what you were saying in the introduction, that this film began from, a personal place. Uh, and so I guess I'm curious how you got from dealing with this memory, this experience, and it coming to fruition in a full production, especially since, like, I understand that you were working on an extremely, like, independent scale, like, sort of outside the film funding model in the state. So yeah, what was your entry point into this film, and who were your, I guess, earliest collaborators?
Right. Yeah, it's sort of a long story because I had this experience when I moved back when I was also 9 years old. But it kind of got stuck with me that I always wanted to address this subject with the Hungarian school system and also um, talk about its flaws and the problematic things around it. Um, but I was developing another script for a first feature, and basically what happened was that the government, the political system in Hungary took over the film fund, and so they rejected all the films that are actually made by filmmakers. Um, and so my script was also rejected, and I was thinking that okay, I'm not going to wait for them any longer. Um, I don't want to get involved with them at all, and so I started writing a script, which is one location. So production-wise, it could be easier to do. And I sort of stepped back to this idea of having or doing a film about this school system itself. But it's also very important for me that the situation happening in Hungary, um, it was so frustrating that nobody really speaks up and nobody stands out for themselves and nobody says anything about the crazy things that are happening. And so the idea was that at one point I had the script. The script was two parts. One of them was Palkó's story. So basically, the first half would have been with Palkó, and the second half would have been with the teacher, divided by the screenplay or the school play. And and so the point behind that was that if this is what we learn in school, if this is what we, they teach us to be silent, to behave, to by the rules, and really don't talk about forming an identity, then this is how we're going to behave as grown-ups. So we're not going to say anything, we're not going to do anything, and even in an obvious situation like this, then we can't stand up for ourselves, and everybody's going to remain silent. Um, so silence was a big thing while writing the script. I was always thinking about this idea of what we learn and how we behave eventually. And so basically, I started writing the script in March, and in 2.5 months later, we started pre-production, and 2.5 months later, we were shooting. So in July, we were already shooting the film, and it was crazy fast. So it came together really, really fast and really intuitively in a way.
Paul, do you remember meeting Bálint?
Yeah, I think we first met. When did we first meet?
It was we could get into a school, like an empty school, and we had like a casting situation with two
Yeah,
other
yeah.
kids.
Yeah, that was the first time I met Bálint at the casting. I was very excited. Yeah, that's how I met Bálint.
Do you remember maybe the earliest conversations that you were having about this film? What was your idea of this film at first, and also what was your idea of the role that you were playing?
Well, at first, the idea of the film, like my idea was, wow, what was my idea?
Paco also lives in Berlin, so he doesn't live in Hungary, right?
Yeah,
So you flew home
yeah,
for the casting the first time.
yeah. I think my first idea of the film was that I have like a small role. Oh, this is loud. This is loud. Um, yeah, and I thought like the character was kind of like, I don't really know what I thought about the character. I just focused on the film and on my expressions, or yeah, on my expressions.
Maybe I'm curious just how you two work together. You know, were you following a traditional script? Were you memorizing lines, or was there something else that built up to filming your scenes?
Well, there were no lines. Like, Bálint told me what the situation is, and like I just said how I would feel in that situation. Yeah, it was super cool working with Bálint.
The chemistry shows. Um, okay, so it's not quite a traditional script. You're providing essentially a setup for all of your actors, or was this sort of unique to Paul? Or
No, all of the actors. So we worked in sort of like an improvisational method. So it was more, I didn't give anybody lines, not even the teachers. But we would set up the situation, and they all knew where it starts and where it should end. They all knew their motivations. I would give them motivations in the scene. So like, what do you have to do? You have to be silent or aggressive or whatever, like these kind of ideas. And so basically they use their own words. Some of the words I would give, and some of them, like if I had anything very specific in mind that they should say, then I would tell them to say that and put that in the line, but in the scene. But yeah, a lot of the things happened during the editing because of that, because it was a lot of times, longer than the scene was eventually. But for example, like the teachers meeting, when they have the teachers are meeting together, the first try, like when we first rehearsed the scene, it was 15 minutes long, and then we narrowed it down to like, I don't know, the event, like how long it is eventually, but I think it was like 7 minutes, and the last two takes of that scene were, both of them were 7:15 or something. So they really caught the rhythm of the scene itself, and understood like what their presence should be in the situation.
okay, yeah. I mean, just thinking about that scene, that's really impressive to think about. That actors were just given like sort of a setup, because I think there are some pretty intense speeches in that scene especially. And I guess I'm also thinking about the school play sequence that we.
The school play was different. We rehearsed that, so those were like one take shots, most of them. I think that's 3 takes, the whole school play. Um, so that was a script, that we had this Cervantes play that I I made like 8. I think it's 100 and something pages, and I made it into 8 pages eventually, and they had to learn the lines, and so that was more of like a formal way of shooting. But when we were shooting in the summer with Palkó and all the others, it was more of a setup, especially like in the teachers' meeting. We had like 3 subjects we wanted to talk about. One was that you have to take over classes from someone else. The second one was Zsuzsa with the cat story, that the cat is running around and they shouldn't be feeding him. And then the third one was when Akush comes up with this thing about what happening at the with Balko, drawing this thing, and so or giving the name of their group, and so they basically knew how to follow, and I had like these ideas, like if we had to move on, like it was getting too long, then I had the principal look at me during the scene. I would be like behind the camera, just move on and move along, and then he would stop the first part of the situation, then we could move along to the next one, and then so I had I didn't want to interfere so much with the scene, so I wanted, because it's really important for me, so it's really realistic and sort of like, and you can really feel that these are real human beings. A lot of them are non-actors. Um, Only some of the teachers are actors, and I think none of the kids played in anything before. You
Attila did, yeah.
Attila played like he was an extra in a film. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think he played in an ad for a cake. Yeah, for a cake. He told me that he played in a like they he and somebody from the staff were talking, and I heard like something that he played in an ad for a birthday cake or something.
Birthday cake.
I don't know. Maybe I just misunderstood.
No, I mean, not like a big significant role, but yeah, it was more. Um, we weren't looking for actors so much. But it's not. It was. We were looking for people who can, um, you know, act in this kind of situation. So like people who are really authentic and can remain themselves and not be different in front of the camera. And a lot of people had these, the memories you had from your school situation. A lot of people were just relying on that and doing the same things that that they would learn back in the day when they were when they were a student. So that was a good reference for everybody to try to be like a teacher.
You mentioned a lot of time was spent practicing expressions and sort of acting in silence, and that sounds really challenging to me to sort of find ways of expressing without dialogue. But I'm not an actor, so I don't know. But you found that easy?
Well, if I look, if I just look without a smile, I think I look a little sad like this. And being in silent is very easy. You just, I just sat in silence and didn't say anything. That's the method. You just have to try. Practice makes perfect.
There you go. Yeah, lesson learned. Uh, I'm curious to know a bit more about just the location, the school, how you found it, how you gained access to it, and yeah, what did it offer you creatively, logistically as a challenge, maybe?
I mean, we were looking for a school that is set in this atmosphere, like these block buildings, this like old Soviet block buildings. So it's also surrounded with buildings and sort of locked in. And we didn't want to step out of the school throughout the film, only just once when Juci walks out at the end. We even had a scene, if you remember, Palkó, when you were at the fence and talking to people outside on the street.
Yeah, we didn't have that in the movie.
Yeah,
Like I think I was with Yuji and Attila.
yeah,
I think Mishi was there too.
yeah. He was.
And like there was one from the staff and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Exactly.
I don't remember the name and somebody else. I think the principal of the school where we casted me,
It was the
where I
it
got
was the
casted.
doorman of the school. The
Yeah,
yeah
door woman.
yeah doorwoman. Yeah.
Yeah, and like those two were like walking across the street, and we like yelled stuff like "Duggers hippie." I think that's. I
Like
think like it's fat hippie.
nasty hippie.
Yeah, nasty hippie. Yeah, and to the door woman, I think we said "Tortash nini." That's cake woman.
Cake
Yeah.
woman. Yeah. Oh yeah. So basically that didn't make the movie. Um, but it was also sort of the idea of having them locked in and sort of like only have connections with the outside world through a fence. And we were looking in these kind of buildings, schools, which were also built as a school. So I didn't because we have a lot of schools in Hungary who what are moved into like these old, really old buildings, and that has sort of a different kind of strict atmosphere. It looks like. I don't know. It looks very different, and so that was also an idea. And we were shooting on 16 millimeter film, so this school had like these light windows on the top of the school, so the light would come in through the window. That was also something that we were thinking about when we chose the school.
Okay, we can start taking audience questions if there are any. Raise your hand high and a mic will come to you. Yep, in the back.
Hi, I was just wondering how the reception was to the film in Hungary by people that saw it and also by the government.
Right. It was well received in Hungary, probably also because of the subject of it. So a lot, like most of the people, lived through this experience. PTSD came up a lot, um, and so basically, it was especially for a movie like this, which is not like a commercial movie. I think we had like 130,000 views within a 10 million, 9 million country. So it was well received. The government, I don't know about that at all. They behave that it doesn't exist. So basically, it's been to Locarno, and no congratulations or anything happened. So it was, and also the film fund. So this film has 19 producers. Everybody chipped in so we can make it, and a lot of people work for free or very low amount of pay to make it happen. And because we're sort of getting used to the situation that we're not going to get money, and a lot of people who are dedicated to work in films like this are, they took their time and energy to work in this film with us. So luckily, since a lot of people have seen it, we are able to, give them money afterwards and honor their work with that at least. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi. Some of the scenes kind of reminded me of some scenes I've seen in Frederick Weissman documentaries. Uh, was was there any documentary influence in the filmmaking, and or any documentary feel intention in the filmmaking?
Um, I didn't really have time to really. I spend most of the time going to schools and actually sitting in with classes and watching how it works. Mostly because I went to school 30 years, like almost 30 years ago, and I was curious how many things changed since then. I had a lot of things that were my own experiences. I had a lot of things in the film that teachers or kids would tell us. So in that sense, sort of documentary, like a lot of things that are in the film have actually happened in real life in some situation or some school. But regarding the references of films, we didn't really look into films so much. We didn't really have time to do that, and also we all have so many experiences on this topic that we didn't really think about looking into other films in that sense. But the documentary style comes through a little bit because of this improvisational method that we used. And it was sort of, for me, it was sort of the idea to make it as realistic as possible. Yeah, but we didn't really we didn't reference any films. If we would talk about a film, it was not on the subject or not documentary so much. It was just the idea of how to frame the scenes or how to create the scenes.
But you have a lot of these sequences that run long, but you're also shooting on 16, and so there is this kind of like tension there of there's a lot at stake. I think every time you're filming a scene, because there's a finite amount of film, and
Right. Yeah.
scene's not
I
cheap.
mean, we made a conscious decision because we didn't like the crew who would have came to do the lighting. They wouldn't have come for free or low pay, so we would have to pay for the crew and also the equipment. We were working with kids, which you can only do for 6 hours a day. So we didn't even have an option to have lighting during the scenes, basically. So Marcel Rev, who's the DOP of Euphoria, and he's a friend of mine from back in film school, and we were talking about that we should shoot on film so it still have this like particular look, and that it's it's going to be easier for us to move along with the shoot. So basically, we would have like 5 minutes to move from one location from the one location to the other, and Marcel could be in the situation with his camera on the shoulder or on a dolly, and sort of you know, they wouldn't acknowledge him so much after a while. He was just there within the scene, with his camera on his shoulder, and that was it. And so that was what we were talking about. And you know, some of the scenes were let go, like the improv, like for the meeting, with the parent-teacher meeting, that was sort of, I wanted that to happen on its own, so I let the improv go a little bit more, and so basically, one more. Maybe I'm gonna fail also. And so, and also the when they have this lesson and about this Hungarian poet, that was also something that I just let go. I talked with Juci how she should, you know, go through the scene and what kind of questions she should ask, but I didn't tell the children anything, so they would just answer the questions they were given. And so those two scenes were the ones when we were really wasting negative and shooting a lot, and producer was not there luckily that day. But other than that, sort of we got the rhythm of the scenes when we already were shooting it. And so, yeah, it's tense with, you know, you could hear the film rolling in the camera. And if you hear it for long enough, you get frustrated. But the idea was that if we do this and shoot on film, then I'm not gonna say, you know, let's move on until we don't have the scene. So we kind of pushed through, and we didn't have the money for this while shooting. We had to get all the money afterwards to, you know, pay up our debts.
Paul, did you have a favorite scene that you shot?
Yeah, I had two. The first one was the scene where I got slapped. I was very excited. Yeah, and first time we shot it, Akush hit me a little, but it didn't really hurt. It was like itchy, and it was super cool. I said, Bálint, why don't we keep that one? And then he said, we have to take it again, because it's just a try for the light or something. Yeah.
No, we have that. We have that recording.
Really?
Yeah.
The one where I got really hit?
I don't know. I don't know what happened.
The
You
first
just told
one. The
me.
first one.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one that
Really?
we took. Yeah, that was the one where I got hit. And the second one was where I climbed up the tree. It was super fun up there. I felt like a giant.
We can go back to the audience. Yes, way in the back.
Bálint, when you referred a moment ago to the parent-teacher meeting, were you talking about the scene where they were discussing the excursion?
Yes.
You provoked that?
Yes.
It was horrible, and I am just wondering whether if they fed that fire when they were working on it, because it looked as if they actually were at that point angry.
Yeah. Well, basically, throughout the film, it was very important for us as the makers to try to understand both of the sides, even the ones keeping silent, even the ones who are talking up and saying something, and also in this situation as well. So what I told them was that everybody has to protect their own child, and in this sense, their child should go to the excursion, and they should have that happening for their child. So basically, that's one of the things I told the parents. A lot of the parents were the actual parents of the children we chose for the roles, for the class basically. And obviously, you say that this scene is only going to work really if you leave empathy out of this for a while, and we understand and we know that you're better people than this, and you would never do that, obviously. But still, if you know, it's not going to work with you explaining yourself all the time. It's only going to work if this really actually happens. And so, the mom who has a problem with the excursion, we chose a character who's actually lived through this whole situation, and it was her story, what she tells in the film. So she actually has 5 kids, and the dad died, and we were looking into like these mother homes and social services where we could find people with sort of similar stories, and it was very important. So we would never. Yeah, you know, put them in a situation where we're actually tearing up things that happened before. She talks about her story in front of other people. She has been through it already, and so she was really open for the others to attack her because she has sort of similar experiences back in the day, and she would be the one saying like, be more hardcore because it's not how, if you're being you're being too nice. That's what she would say to all the other parents. So it was also they didn't really, I mean, they understood their role in the situation, and that's why they would feed the fire in that sense. Most of the parents were parents of the kids we chose for the class, but I mean, obviously we had some people who weren't, especially the dad who comes in, and he's in a previous scene, and so he was one of the persons that we really like told that to attack her in that sense, and I told her, Anna is her name, to whenever she feels like really fed up of everybody, just burst out and start talking about your own story and how it is, and confront them in that sense. So that's how we sort of built the scene, and I really left a lot of that to be real improv, and edited a lot of things after we shot it.
Okay, we have time for one last question, if there is one. Yes, in the middle.
Thank you. Wow, this is really loud. Do you believe that silence in a film is like the best way to portray a character's emotion?
No. I think in this film definitely it was a big part of the film because it's all about silence. It's about Juci's silence whenever she sees the situation happening. It's about her not reacting to the situation, and this is a very common thing. I mean, just the right now in Hungary at least, it's the scene when they're talking on a hallway about Juci saying that she has to speak up, and her friend says that, you know, nothing's gonna come out of this, and you're just gonna get fired, or something's gonna happen with you, and you should defend yourself, other than speaking up, because nothing's gonna happen. That's something that would, you know, that's a discussion that you would have a lot of times right now, and that's an important scene for me in the film because of that. That someone who wants to do the right thing, so there would always be someone saying that, you know, nothing's going to come out of it, so please don't do it, and sort of save yourself from this situation. And so in that idea, you know, silence in that sense was important for. That was basically the motivation to start writing, because I feel so frustrated when this happens, that this frustration was sort of a motivation to start writing about this, and And yeah, so that was the idea. Yeah.
Paul, do you feel differently about school after doing this movie?
No.
All right, we're out of time.
Okay.
Thank you both for the film. Paul,
Thank you
for
so
your
much for-
performance, too.
Yeah, thank you for having us.